Welcome to the Noah Presgrove case. As of today, there has been outrage, anger, and frustration. What has resurfaced is an old conversation private which Robyn Smith had, Noah Presgrove's aunt, weeks after Noah Presgrove's death in September of 2023. And the contents of what was talked about at the time, summarised, was Robyn wanting to know the location of where the birthday girl known as Avery Jo Howard was at the time on a specific day, because Robyn supposedly wanted to reveal that location public so everyone knew where she was. Now, I've done a video on this in the past, a very delicate, balanced for and against argument. And there'll be a range of people that have seen that video already on my channel. The real question is, why has this post, and in regard to Robyn Smith, those comments made, why has it resurfaced now? What has gone down in recent time to re-trigger that focus on Robyn out of everyone within the case? From the friends to partygoers to family of family and so on. In terms of the coverage that I've done in recent time, we've taken a look at Jasmine Milan. I've taken a look at other theories and ideas, as well as deep psychological analysis with the hidden meanings and the backstory behind elements within the case, the human behavioral changes. Maybe something has gone on elsewhere on Facebook, or there was discussions in the background. Nevertheless, that backlash has come around again, that public outrage and anger towards Robyn Smith. Is Robyn being attacked? Is she misunderstood? Are certain party goers, or were some, in danger at some point? Could it be a matter of everyone in some way is in a lose-lose situation due to the events that happened and followed after Noah's death, and dealing with it in different ways? Join me today as we have a refreshed look at what has gone down just recently, and look at additional screenshots and conversations which have been shared publicly, and for me to give my reactions to it in the moment. For those watching this live premiere, welcome. Share your thoughts and reactions as well in the live chat box on the right hand side of the screen. And at any point, if you have any additional thoughts, comments, questions, answers, theories you'd like to add on, if you agree or disagree, all comments are welcome. Be sure to drop a comment down below under the video, so it will help with awareness. It will continue the conversations and start off new ideas and perspectives for the case and those involved and caught up within it. If you would like to support my channel and what I do directly, if you go to the comment section, there is a pinned message with some links to follow. If you want to support me in a practical, alternative way, the PayPal link is below. And if you simply want to catch up on the recent videos by mine and my channel, if you've missed out on anything, don't worry. The full playlist in regard to the Noah Presgrove case is all available. Top right corner where the I symbol is up there. If you click on it, you'll get the drop down menu box with the playlist and some loose videos attached. So the order of how we'll do things today, we're going to look at this new post which has come about and reflect back on the older screenshots and conversations. Look at it from the point of view of those that are outraged or don't agree with Robyn's actions at a point in time. And then some other people that may understand the situation from a different perspective. We'll take a look at some additional screenshots and any photos which have been included in the replies to build a bit more of an understanding and see there's a backstory behind any of it. And then later, I will share with you my raw thoughts and opinion on the overall situation and as to why this has resurfaced once again. And as well, if you stick around in this video later on, I'll share with you the attorneys, the list of the named people that are defending and working with the different people within the case and the wrongful death lawsuit. So make sure to not go anywhere, just sit back, relax, and let's begin. You can find this post on the case discussion group 12 hours ago by Mike Johnson. The caption reads, "The issue is clear here. Blast someone's location so early in the investigation with no evidence shows Robyn already had her sights out for the Howard family and their deep pockets. There is a reason there was lack of communication between these families from the start. Why would she want her location blasted and intimidation tactics? Why not try to keep communication open? Swaying of public opinion has gone on from the start. I'm here for Noah and his truth. However, there is a lot going and getting in the way of the truth." Right. So, is there a reason, Mike, why this has come about again? Because it was covered previously months ago. I did my video back then because it was the first time I heard about it. Now, there's some additional details that I'll be sharing with you today from what Brooke Bounds-Carter had said in the live chat once, but then also from the perspective of Robyn Smith too, when it comes to Carter Combs as well, supposedly being attacked at a football game. All kinds of wild stuff going on, but we'll get through it bit by bit. First of all, the reference of deep pockets. Now, we've seen that within the community on Facebook, strangers, members of the general public saying deep pockets, corruption, people being paid off, and in more recent time, false claims aimed my way being paid off too, which is crazy. But it seems like the reason why the general public use those buzzwords is because somehow it links back, as what Mike suggests here, as in what Robyn believed at the start or was considering. So it's like when you've got a family that is going through tough times and within a case, and what they say, the general public who look up to that family will hold on to every single word that's said, and then that's how it can spread the buzzwords, the claims, the mentions, the references. So, okay, but this whole intimidation tactic and possible acts of vigilantism onwards, did that influence anyone within the community? Before we get any further, let's just see the photos which have been provided. Hopefully it will show on screen, or most of it will. We'll do it this way because it's a bit brighter. I have done coverage already in the past, okay, just so you know. So this is a Facebook Messenger conversation with Robyn on the left in the grey box, and then I think on the right in the purple, who could it possibly be? Now, one name comes to my head, but it's not with absolute confidence, just to make that very clear. I think it could have been maybe, is it possibly Jan Fiorillo? Or is it Donna Bond? Could it be Donna in the purple? It was an individual that, was listening to Robyn, but it seemed like they were considering and acknowledging Robyn at the same time in terms of certain requests. Beside that, back then, September 17th, 2023, the same month of Noah Presgrove's death, so you can tell it's quite raw, the emotions are running, and that's understandable. Robyn had said, it's always okay to stand up for what is right, not who has the deeper pockets. So here, Robyn doesn't directly aim to any named individuals specifically as to who has deeper pockets, but maybe earlier in the conversation, if the full context was provided, we would know. This is, whoever it is in the purple box, probably talking about different sides within the case, who to support and who not. bit of a conflict, bit of a crossroad, not too sure what to do. And then Robyn's like, it's okay to stand up for what's right, regardless of the people with the deeper pockets. That deep pockets aren't important. The truth is more important. Maybe people interpreted Robyn's comment here as an indirect swipe and it being aimed towards the dark side, the Howard family, the Newton family, maybe. Or it could be like how the general public who's on the family side in support, like the army page and so on, that interpreted it that way. Now below here, Robyn says Avery is at the brewery in Duncan. That's supposedly on the 17th day of September when Avery is at the brewery in Duncan. And then they ask, she drinking? And Robyn gives a thumbs up. Now, why should that matter where Avery is on that specific day and whether she's drinking or not? It's interesting how Robyn is inquiring and pointing out an observation with Avery, her location, and below you can see a selfie uploaded to Snapchat on the day, I guess, which Robyn must have seen on Snapchat, and it, in some way triggered her thinking, how can these two partygoers, more so Avery, be hanging out, having fun and smiling, whilst Noah Presgrove isn't able to? But why is it about Avery this? Jasmine Milan is in the same photo with Avery at the same location. Why isn't Robyn, referring to Jasmine? Why is it all focused on Avery? Because Avery being the party host, which Noah attended at the house. So it feels like there's blame and responsibility that falls on Avery. That Jasmine Milan was just a party goer, not a host, so it's not her fault. Maybe that's what Robyn was thinking at the time. If we scroll down, there should be more to it. So they say thank you for whatever reason. And then Robyn, in regard to this Snapchat with Avery and Jasmine, she says, blast her location. Let her know we know where she's at. But wouldn't people know where she's at if you follow someone on Snapchat or if it's a public post anyway? If people are following you, they're going to see it anyway. So is there a reason to say, we know where you are, we can see you? Wouldn't they say in response, well, yeah, you are going to know where I am because I've posted this public, or I've posted this to my page and you follow me, so of course you will know. Normally, if there's a form of intimidation tactics about revealing or letting someone know that you are aware of where that said individual lives, revealing their location, or saying to them cryptically, I know what you did last Saturday. I know where you were and how long you spent in an area for. If you're a stranger to that said person, that will be more intimidating because it seems like an invasion of a person's privacy. When someone is minding their own business, doing their own thing, with no connections to a specific person, and then they're told and informed that they were being watched, basically. Quite an unsettling feeling, of course, when it's face-to-face and you have no clue in the moment that there is someone about watching, and then it's used to intimidate and make the person feel uncomfortable. In terms of digital stalking, in a way, the same way. It can be amongst strangers, and it can be amongst people that know one another but may have been distant, or at least the activity or location as in a person doing their own thing hasn't been made well known or publicly shared, so how would the other person know about it? That's when there's that intimidation tactic. Knowing what's up and what's going on, whether you know the person or not, but that original individual never shared it with you, never disclosed it either, so how would you know? It kind of makes them feel scared. So I don't know the dynamics here, whether Robyn is following Avery, for example, on Snapchat, or if it was passed on by a friend to Avery or Jasmine, sent it to Robyn and said, hey, look what's going on here. And then Robyn was outraged and thought, you know what, I'll contact someone and we'll have to spread the awareness to say this is what Avery is doing, this is where she's at, to try and scare her, to say, look, we're on to you, we're monitoring you, checking in on you as to what you do and where you go, serve it as a warning. Why though? Because in the early days, if Robyn believed that, Avery played a role in Noah's death, or felt that there was a form of responsibility and it linked over, then maybe the aim would be to just say, we're watching you to see if they slip up at any point, to try and force a confession or to make Avery break at some point, maybe. That was the same day, September 17th. Blast her location. Blast means put it out there, make it well known, make it heard, make it loud. Possibly you can interpret it as share it with the general public that Avery is at a specific brewery as well as drinking. But what is the motive? What is it supposed to achieve exactly? Now, Madison Rawlings, June 3rd, 2025, of a house, who knows why, a location of a house, posted, and then Deborah Smith, the grandmother, responded and said, what, Madison, are you looking to buy that house? It's nice. So that's in 2025. So why should that matter here? How relevant is it to Robyn, deep pockets and all of that? I mean, the only thing that I can interpret on the spot in the moment as a suggestion only, as some people were saying that Noah's family didn't quite disclose where money went and how it was spent on certain private investigators in the early days. Some people questioned it. And then when you got Mike here with his comment about, the reference to the deep pockets, as like Robyn indirectly said here, and Mike referenced it as in Robyn already had her sights set out on the Howard family and their deep pockets. Is this about suggesting there is some kind of indirect hypocrisy, how victim's family talks about deep pockets, and then one of the victim family members in 2025 is ready to buy a house, which could be quite pricey, and with the lack of closure of where money was put or spent from GoFundMe or anywhere else, is like, was any of the money put into something else given to Madison to spend on a house? There's no hard evidence of that in the moment, but I'm just, using a theory and an idea based on what people are suggesting here, one way or another. The ones that go on and complain about deep pockets are supposedly the same people that get deep pockets themselves and redirect money elsewhere into buying properties and not for Noah Presgrove. Is that what I truly believe? Well, I can't, because there's not enough hard evidence to prove that. But as a theory, I think that's what some people are talking about. You let me know in the live chat if you agree with that theory and if that's what you were meaning at the time. Right. So that's pretty much it for that. There might have been the odd of a screenshot as for the conversations and stuff, but that's already on my channel, so you can check it out yourself. What we need to do is get to the comments here. We're going to set it to the newest because I think that's when all the comments show up, or at least more than usual. Take in mind that later on there might be more comments posted here. When you watch my video at the time later tonight, it may not show all the comments. That's just because I recorded my video earlier in the day because of the time zone difference. So I'm not ignoring people's comments. This on screen is all I can see at the time because it's earlier. Beside that, we've got anonymous member. 793. Interesting. It's interesting when we get anonymous members because obviously they're hiding their identity, but for what reason exactly? Protecting themselves. They say it's hard. I do think the family made a big mistake immediately going after the party people. Open communication would have been the best play. Yeah, I mean, beside, the family and how they've gone about things in the early days, were they really the ultimate reason as to why partygoers chose to hide away and not reach out? Because I'd argue and say if they did interact on some of the Facebook pages at the start, besides the family-run one, I think the general public and how they acted at times may have pushed away certain partygoers as well. So I think more of a collective group of people that hold a form of accountability for bridges being burnt down. Christine, these were also back in 2023, fresh after the incident, old text get brought up like they just happened. Yeah, they are from the past. And as old as they are, they're important in other ways because it's fresh, it's raw, emotions are running high in different directions. I'll give you my thoughts on that later. Andrea Chuprov says, this gives a peek into just how contentious it actually is and was since basically day one before any evidence was had. And then we got Brooke Bounds Carter and how money was sure being talked about really early on. Right, so besides the money talk in recent time and the false claims directed and attacked towards me by some petty people and some males that are on their massive period, it appears that just within the general sphere of the case that the family was referring to money at the start. I would say based on that text conversation, Robyn doesn't specifically give any names as to who has deep pockets, but possibly just talking in general, that if there are any deep pockets out there, you need to set that aside and stand for the truth because that's most important. So, yeah, you could make the argument and say money was being talked about at the beginning, yes, but maybe just based on the lack of context and what we're working with, it was the context of, in general, when it does come to money can make people talk, but also money can make people change the narratives, try and stay on the clean path and don't be corrupted by any darkness or corruption. Maybe because it's happened before. Robyn has heard about it in other cases. This is just about putting it into perspective, and I hope that people from both sides, more so the light side, the ones that get overly emotional very quickly and make their minds up, consider this video and the perspective. PY, whoa, why are you sharing someone's location? That's harassment. Just leave those girls alone. So PY is basically saying what Robyn Smith was doing at the time was a form of harassment. Brenda, sometimes a grieving person doesn't think clearly. Then coupled with the false information being given to her during this time, no wonder why she reacted this way. Sure, the information being fed to the family should have been vetted first. Again, a grieving person doesn't think clearly. They also probably didn't think someone would be giving them bogus information surrounding this tragedy. That is my opinion based on the screenshots provided in the original poster. I don't understand why Madison is being dragged into this post. Yeah, so Brenda, I agree with you in terms of the psychological aspect. I do agree with you in regard to why is Madison being dragged into this. If anyone didn't quite hear or it wasn't made quite clear earlier in this video, I was suggesting that maybe the reason why Madison is indirectly being dragged and included within all this is because supposedly buying a new house and because other people have the suspicion about money and where it's put and spent, such as with the GoFundMe, and whether it was spent on private investigators, or certain portions were. What happened to the rest? Was other money put elsewhere? Is that how maybe Madison is able to afford a house or something? That's just trying to make sense. It's a bit of a guessing game at this moment, but maybe some other people will have clearer answers. The only question that I have, Brenda, because I wasn't around at the very start, what was the false information being given to Robyn at the time? And who was it? Or who were the people? And where did they come from? Like online, on certain pages? What was the information about the false claims for it to impact and affect Robyn to the point of going after Avery Combs, supposedly? What is that false information? I'm not too sure of. Supportive Llama, interesting name. Robyn is an amazing aunt. There are many stages of grief. No one going through grief should be so harshly judged, and people having private messages with Robyn, then posting screenshots, your character speaks volume. Yeah, I mean, it depends if the actual act was followed through or not. If it was just a conversation and it did not go any further, it's a private conversation. Similar to when Brooke Bounds-Carter was having a private conversation with some person online on Facebook, and they were kind of laughing and joking, but it was leaked or revealed, sent over to Justin Roy, and then Justin Roy said to me, hey look, Brooke Bounds-Carter is being really threatening and scary. I'm in danger, along the lines of that. And under the circumstances of that particular comment and supposed threat, analysing the language and the wording, it was one of those type of conversations that you have with someone that you trust, get on well with, when talking about another person out there, and it's supposed to stay within those four walls. You know, when those conversations are private one, where what you say is just words and you don't act out on those words. You don't actually follow through with anything. You're letting off steam. You might be joking. You might have a dark sense of humour, and it's not judged because it remains private. But when it is leaked and revealed public, people will look at it in a different light and be suspicious of it and think the worst, which is understandable. I'm thinking, could that apply here with Robyn Smith and the other person? I mean, I can see the dynamics now. One person is suffering and struggling. The other individual may not be impacted the same way. It's important for one person not to babysit, but to be, you know, the beacon, the anchor within that darkness, to make sure that one person that is going through an emotional roller coaster does not go down a dark path and doesn't retaliate or react in a way that they'll regret later on. It's the responsibility to some extent of the other person that is okay to just watch over. Kind of like if you're out somewhere with a person, they're drinking, you're not, whether you're a designated driver or you are walking somewhere, because you're with them and you care, you have the responsibility, or you choose to look after them whilst they're out partying or drinking, and more importantly, when you're on the way back home or you're dropping them off. You're by their side, you hold them, you may even carry them back home, for example. They may be drunk. They may struggle with walking, they may not have their balance, they may be a bit tipsy, a bit disorientated. You're there as their anchor to make sure that they're safe, protected, and don't get injured or trip over. It's the same way digitally in this situation with Robyn and whoever, in my opinion. What else do we have? We have Dina Roosh. Now, I think Dina Roosh may be a person that has a problem with me based on what they may have said about my channel, but that's just me and my memory. Beside that, Dina here says, I have to say, in Robyn's defence, this was a couple of weeks after her nephew suspiciously died, in a traumatic death like Noah's, you look for someone to blame. It's human nature. He was with his friends. They saw him last and they had no answers for her. Then seeing some of them out partying like nothing happened, I can only imagine the rage, more of a trigger, the hurt that she must have felt. She said to blast her location, had Noah been my nephew, I would have went to that bar and caused a scene. The thing is, Dina, most of what you said, I understand and I agree with. However, Dina, the context behind that brewery bar wasn't all down to drinking alcohol. Yes, it's at a brewery where there's alcohol, but they were in a separate room from what Brooke Bounds-Carter said, and they were having a baby shower. So, in a separate room where there's no alcohol, a baby shower full of babies, and you, Dina, would rush on down there and have it out with them. You're going to make all the babies cry. You're going to create a stressful environment, right? Not exactly smart thinking, Dina. Not quite maternal motherly instinct there. It's quite lacking. But, if you don't know the context in the first place, you're not going to know, understandably. But beside that, what else does she say? I think Robyn has handled herself better than most of us would have. I know my mama bear would have been running on high because my nieces and nephews are just like my own kids to me. Cut her some slack. There's no reason to bring all this crap up now. Curious about the address posted. The comment under it asks if she was going to buy that house. It also looks as if Madison posted it herself. Or is this Madison posting someone else's house? Let's see what the responses are. Maybe Brooke may bring it up about the baby shower. We'll see. Same goes if my nephew would have been a party goer. I don't blame anyone defending their own. We all do it. Okay, Dina. So if you understand that everybody will defend their own people, their own loved ones, then do you, Dina, have a go or complain at the dark side for them protecting their own people in different ways? Or is it one rule for one rule for another? I wonder. Brooke, BBC, responds, Dina, are you serious? Who was out partying like nothing happened? And let's flip the script. Your nieces and nephews are being falsely accused, physically assaulted, and not to mention all the mental harassment they have dealt with. You're telling me you would be okay with it? Girl, come on. We've talked in depth over defending our babies. Slide that shoe on the other foot and tell me you wouldn't be livid. And Dina, of course I would. Did you read my comment under my post? Also, this was only a couple of weeks after Noah's death, so I'm guessing no one was physically assaulted and had been mentally harassed, or maybe not even accused at that point. Now, 2 years later, it's very different. Here we go. Brooke to Dina. Oh yes, they had been by that time. So by that time of the 21st of September, Brooke, from the looks of it, is saying that some of the partygoers, the girls, had been physically assaulted, mentally harassed. So from the 4th of September 2023 to the 21st of September or the 17th of September, a lot went down in that span of time, in a short space. Right. So yeah, yes, there had been by that time. Sweet and Robyn started accusing them immediately of the death, immediately, like a day after immediately. She also was the one to physically assault one of the girls, not to mention mentally. She is a horrible human. Right. So Brooke isn't too specific here as to which person was physically assaulted, one of the girls, as in the context or where it took place. Well, don't worry. We do have a supposed example by Brooke Bounds-Carter, which I'll share with you a bit later, so don't go anywhere. And Robyn did respond back to it as well back then. A lot went down previously. As for people on the light side and others that don't listen and continue to yap on like a broken record, be sure to focus in today because we're bringing it all back round full circle. Julie Ann. It has to be heartbreaking and beyond words to lose someone in a tragic way like this. I feel terrible for everyone who is suffering the loss of Noah. In the last 2 years, a lot has been said back and forth. Never knowing what exactly happened makes it harder. Fair points. Evelyn, nobody knows for sure what happened until it all comes out. Fair enough. We got Denise. Tim Daniel with a bit of a long comment, but I'll read it. This is the kind of wild shit I don't understand. You pull this stunt and then wonder why Noah's friends won't share information. They could have had a lot of answers with a different approach. And I know, had they tried open communication as an alternative approach rather than blasting Noah's friend's address to the world, for what? Why else blast an address? If it wasn't with the insinuation that the mobs should get their pitchforks and go and find her out in public or wherever, I imagine that felt intimidating and certainly not a great approach to keep lines of communication open with the people who were last to see Noah. It didn't have to be this way. Noah's friends were painted as being uncooperative when in fact they all reached out to help and they were not extended much of an opportunity to do so. They shared with the LE and now all that is going over to the attorneys. All that discovery and that will eventually hopefully be released from that protection order and it will make it to the group's hair for everyone to see. Fingers crossed. Noah had good friends, and then I imagine some of the older adult defendants will take it to the next legal phase, as is their right to do so when falsely accused of murder. Okay. Kelly, I wonder if this was your child just a few weeks after their death, if you might be a little bitter as well. Y'all just need to let the courts handle it and quit stirring up. This resolves nothing. Let's see the responses. Catch up with them as much as we can. BBC, curious if your kids were being falsely accused and had threats to their life and actually being physically assaulted. If you would be okay with it and sit back and not say a thing and let the courts handle it, you might be a little bitter if it was your child. I'm betting. I would be bitter both ways. And talk about arguing on Facebook. Sometimes the truth needs to be seen on people. Charming. Imagine your kid lying on the road after being at a 3-day-long party with his friends. Do you ever think that if he were alive, then this wouldn't be a thing? No, you just think about those kids that are alive. Well, what about Noah? Ashley. And the truth is slowly leaking out. Look at how long it took to get all the innocents served and look at the filings that are starting to trickle in. Well, the reason why it took some time for some of the people to be served, as in the defendants, is because the original mailing address was outdated and sent to an empty house or something. And that ever since certain defendants had moved on or were living in different locations, and I guess the people of the authority didn't take fast enough action or follow up to the updated places immediately to some extent. So there's that you've got to take in mind. But beside, Ashley says, what is done in the dark will come to the light. I hope Noah and his family finally get justice, just like Molly Miller and Colt, that case in recent time. There's a few people in the live chat recently that said that Partners in True Crime, the ones that did coverage on Noah Presgrove, did coverage on Molly Miller and Colt Haynes in the past, but they supposedly got things badly wrong and it led to a wild goose chase supposedly. So, who knows what goes on there. Tim to Charming, what a ridiculous thing to say. If Noah was alive, he'd be sticking up for his friends, the people who were always there for him. How in your twisted mind is it okay to attack the people Noah loved and trusted with no evidence of anything other than photos of them having a great time? Attack them legally and verbally and in writing daily for a very long time now. What about Noah exactly? Noah chose to be with his friends that night. Imagine your kid being innocent and accused of murdering their best friend. No, seriously, do you have one? Well, let me post about yours daily for a few years, calling them murderers. How would you feel if I said yours murdered their best friend? You got some bad logic. And look what happened in the Molly and Colt case. 13 years of false rumours fueled by social media. Did they find those kids in a lake like we were told by the locals? Did they find them under a concrete slab? Did they find them in a burn pit? Were they in a freezer? No, no, no. 13 years of nonsense, fueled rumours, and those kids were found together and barely a mile from the car. You know, I didn't have time to do some coverage on the case. If I did, I don't know what my interpretation would have been of it. I remember there was a viewer on my channel known as Beauty Garumo who was friends with the cousin of them or something. Kelly, don't act like you know what went on in either incident. This could have been a falling out with Noah and his friends. You have no idea because you weren't there, same as with Molly and Colt. So again, not known facts because you weren't there either. Kelly says to BBC, that's just an excuse. BBC, what's an excuse? Explain. Robyn is called out for the awful person she truly is. Do you know they never tried to serve Stevie Howard and Avery Howard till the day they went/made arrangements to get the paperwork? Quit acting like they were hiding from them. That embarrassing you had actually wrote that. We pray every day that this is solved so all these witch hunters can move along with their lives. Yes, this is about Noah. Should have always been about Noah, not this damn witch hunt. Noah would be ashamed of his family and all you idiots. Right. So Brooke Bounds Carter is saying that Noah Presgrove would be ashamed of his own family. So we've got really strong words coming out from this. Mike, listen, I just feel there is more going on here than it seems. I have supposed family until I have seen anyone who points out things that are innocent booted from the family page. I've seen death threats allowed on that page. What, the justice one? I've seen a carefully crafted narrative pushed whilst it seems the truth is in the shadows. Caden Pressey was wrong. Robyn was never shown proof, and I guarantee she knows he's wrong. But that will never be acknowledged because Caden set the tone. So many rumours and misinformation allowed out there. Right. Mike, indirectly, what's mentioned here about Caden, has that got anything to do with what Brenda was saying, as in Robyn being fed false information at the very start? I mean, it was in 2024 when I saw Caden Pressey make his Facebook post. So what happened in 2023? What did Caden Pressey say to set the tone towards Robyn Smith exactly? If anyone knows. Hope says this is a reach. What is a reach? I mean, the observation of what Robyn said and was thinking at the time, there's a screenshot of that. It is what it is. It's about understanding, was it the right thing to do, the wrong thing to do, and all the other factors to consider in between. George Choden says, wow, what was she trying to do? Send a mob over to teach them all a lesson? Isn't that illegal? Wow, holy F, beep, wow. I don't know if George is acting shocked because it's the first time he's seen this, because I did do a video on this months ago on my YouTube channel, just for context, but yeah. Another anonymous member. Whoa, what? I've heard people talk about this in the groups, but with as much rumours and lying goes around, I put it aside as a possibility, but not fact. This case is so heartbreaking. Well, look, this is the thing. Once again, if people watched my videos on my YouTube channel, Warlike Wrath, within reason, you would know about most of this with the context as well. Besides, I cannot imagine losing one of my own, especially at a younger age, and the circumstances around the death. I also cannot imagine finding my lifelong best friend on the side of a road either. It's someone who I care about. We've all been there, maybe. Then to add in not being able to grieve the loss at that age properly, all because immediately you are accused of awful things with zero evidence by not just a couple of folks, but thousands of strangers online calling for your death or life in prison. Oh God, it goes on, doesn't it? Where are we at? I watched to go through a similar thing. There's just so much to be sad about in the case. Heartbreaking. I have zero ties to anyone involved, besides a couple of individuals I have gotten to know slightly through the groups, as much as anyone really can through Facebook, and it breaks my heart every time I think about Noah and every time I think about the other young adults. Only worse because of the wrongful death suit. Like I said, sad all the way around. Okay. Continuing on. Mike Johnson. She says the phones were wiped. That's not true. Wording is intentional here. So where did it come from in the first place, that particular thing? I think we saw this in recent time. This is from Reddit. Professional feed Noah's Aunt Robyn Smith had said, "We know that the phones were wiped." I'm not sure where the new phone rumour came up, unless it was because OHP had sent 2 phones off and it took months for them to be returned. So, whilst Robyn Smith was claiming as a fact that the phones of the partygoers were wiped of evidence, where did it come from? How did Robyn find out about this? Who told her? Who told the family? You know, the general public can reiterate this without giving a source, and when you do find out the source, you can say, well, you can understand it, it's from the family, you would hope to believe what they say is the truth, but when it comes to the family, where did they hear that from exactly? Because it is a food chain, really. And this one, Mike Johnson, Bub Wilcoxon, Johnny Trout Wilcoxon, the father to Stevie Howard, was not first on the scene. Robyn had said at some point previously on Facebook, the first official on the scene was a Terrell volunteer firefighter, Avery Combs' grandfather, Bub Wilcoxon, Johnny Trout Wilcoxon, to be fair. To be specific, another volunteer firefighter on scene is related to JM. Now, I don't know if that means Jasmine Milan or a different Milan, because I know it was a bit all over the place with different names and it got confusing with the JMs. There was like 2 or 3 different JMs. We got Casey to Mike. This was told to Robyn by Donna Bond in a private group chat they were in. I'm sure you have seen those screenshots. Well, me personally, I've never seen those screenshots, Casey, so I'm in the dark about that. Also, Robyn has corrected that and does not believe it either. So do we have the screenshots of the corrections made then? So Anonymous, how convenient once it doesn't fit their story, they don't believe it anymore. Just because they want to deny the truth doesn't make it no longer true. So, are you going to comment on the actual post? I'm sure, knowing your behaviour in these groups, you are totally okay with it. What can you say? Scammers always attract other scammers and felons like birds of a feather. And then this one, Mike, this was December 2023. Really small to see, but Robyn says, I don't know if I can file the suit, the wrongful death suit. Doesn't it have to be Casey, Noah's mom, or Victor, the father, or Madison Rawlings, the sister, maybe Deborah, the grandmother? I guess. And then a bit earlier on in the convo, Robyn had said, it's time to slap them with the wrongful death lawsuit and get a lawyer. Right. So, in terms of that wrongful death lawsuit, slapping that on and some other comments made by Robyn and phones being wiped, if some of it is considered wrong information or Robyn was given false information and spread it online public, that can be its own talking points and themes within the case. How did these individual screenshots link back, Mike, to the original post of Robyn blasting out the location of someone? The themes are unique individually, separate, in my opinion. Lainey, this is the first I've seen of this. Well, it has been covered on my channel already. It's kind of like slander, isn't it? Why would it matter if she was drinking? How would Robyn know that she's drinking if they're at a baby shower, I wonder? We'll get back to that later. Brooke then says, but she is a person of integrity as she claims, class act. What's mentioned here? It might not fully show on screen because Facebook is useless for the user interface. Robyn in the past had said, and here's the rest of them, aside from the Cody's Brothers Barn one, which is a ridiculous lie, we never removed a single comment that was made by Brooke Bounds Carter or anyone else in that camp. It all had to do with slander. I know I don't have to prove myself to anyone as I am a person of integrity. But if people are concerned about why some comments get removed, this is why. A person of integrity under certain circumstances or areas, themes and topics, maybe. Would Robyn Smith be considered as a person of integrity if they are willing or they want someone's location to be made public, which could further endanger that person of interest within the case and for finding justice for Noah? Yeah, different times, different moments. When you're stable or more stable, you may say more, you may think more critical in some ways before, after, but then neglecting moments of lower points when there was more vulnerability with someone themselves, and kind of like a mask was dropped, their heat of the moment emotions spilled out, and it didn't do much good for them, and it doesn't look good for them in how they've acted and what they've said compared to how they normally are. There's different ways of looking at it, but I'm sure, some strangers won't understand. Anyway, George DeBrook, oh my God, she needs to hire some kind of damage control PR firm. I mean, she's the face of Noah Presgrove Scholarship Fund, and she's sounding like some backwoods vigilante country justice redneck. Right. BBC, oh, I have so many more screenshots of her self-righteous comments. So many more. Head of fund and works for a bank. B, they're really proud of some of the classy comments she makes. Bet the board's really proud of her. Bank. So what, working at a bank, what, having money, deep pockets? Is this being interpreted as, for someone to talk about deep pockets, they have deep pockets themselves? I don't know. But in terms of deep pockets and money, wasn't it Noah's family that said they were struggling with money? When it came to the reward money for that missing flyer, they could only offer $16,000. They couldn't give any more because they were already struggling as they were. I remember something along the lines of that mentioned. Right. Ashley, BBC bet or beat, or were you sliding that word in as a hint? Anonymous says, dumbest comment yet. Right, do you know what a bank board is? I don't. Mike, I can tell all the hate anyone wants to throw my way. I'm here for Noah, not deep pockets or agendas. Pay attention to the dates, they matter. So that was just 2 weeks after Noah's death. So yeah, the tensions, the emotions are running quite high back then. But didn't she make a corrected list of things that she thought she said wrong? I've not seen that personally. It would be nice if it was shown just for more balance. Anonymous, Robyn should be ashamed of herself. What kind of actual caring aunt would do this? She should have been the adult and helped the other niece and nephew who just lost their sibling in a healthy way. Instead, all she saw was money and a chance at a payday, no matter the further damage she knew it would cause. It's now time just to slow down just a little bit as I share with you my thoughts and analysis on the matter, for and against. It's about balancing it out. Ultimately, there are no real winners. Everyone is or was suffering and losing out in one way or another. From the family, the loss of one of their own. From the friends, partygoers, a loss of one of their own close friends. From the friends of friends to the parents of the partygoer friends, that loss within the community was and is felt, creating a void and negative feelings and struggling at times. Understandably, everybody acts and reacts differently. Look at Caden Pressey, how at the time on the day, after leaving the highway at whatever time, returning back to the party house, whilst others supposedly went back to bed and slept, which could be hard to believe, but if it's a coping mechanism, a defense mechanism to protect themselves, to try and drown out the noise, who knows, it might have been done. But Caden Pressey, he decided to sit down on the couch and watch TV. Was that as a form of disrespect towards Noah or disregard? No. It was Caden Pressey in the moment handling it his way, dealing and coping with it his way to try and temporarily drown out all the noise and shut the whole world out. Because of a distressing, shocking time, body and mind, self-defense mechanism, trying to distract oneself. It's not a sign of a lack of care to the victim or the person that's passed away. It's just in the moment trying to deal with it and then onwards. And from what we've seen with different party goers and so on, some have struggled. People have mentioned about Mikey Lair went into I don't know what you call it, a building to do with psychological issues because of struggling. Whether that links back to Noah Presgrove's death or not. I mean, Caden Pressey did bring it up that on the ride back home, the atmosphere was low, understandably, and Mikey kept going over it in his head, finding it hard to believe what he saw and heard about with Noah, going round and round in circles with talking about it with him, trying to process it, the shock, certain stages of grief possibly. We'll get to that a bit later, so don't go anywhere. You had Brylan Sweat at the scene, who broke down crying, and Caden was comforting him. So a lot of different people have been touched and impacted in different ways at the time and then onwards. And it's more so the focus on onwards. Whereas the odd J person likes to push the narrative that there is only one victim. Noah Presgrove was the only victim in the build-up to it, but once the case was started and the investigation opened up, Noah was no longer just one victim. There was a range and variety of different victims along the way for how people have been treated. False claims made online, any stalking or doxing or threats or any physical altercations in real life, any tension or drama like that, any serious times, moments where people have been in danger or feel like they've been put in danger, any damage to property, people being hypervigilant every day, even online in communities, people trying to cover the case and spread awareness, and false claims being made about them as an attempt to tarnish the credibility and to destroy YouTube channels. I mean, look, I could say I've been a victim myself to sexual deviant threats aimed my way. Over 10 plus deep fake AI videos, deep fakes of me without my consent. I'm a victim to that. Previously, I've been a victim to deep fake videos elsewhere in other cases, where a person did 29 videos of me without my consent. False claims and false labels towards me as well, to try and spread the word in wrongful ways. You had, we might as well say it on this one occasion, you had Justin Roy that was on a mission that wherever I commented spreading awareness on the Noah Presgrove case on YouTube, if there was any other creators briefly covering the case and I gave some direction and pointers, Justin was bound to his duty in following me about like an obsessed bag handler, but making false claims about me along the way, every step in opportunity. Anywhere that I left a comment simply saying, I've covered the case and I've made quite a few videos, it's a very deep, interesting case, and I've covered some never seen before material, Justin would follow it up on another channel under my thread comment and say, Warlike Ref, he's in it for the money. Warlike Ref, he's not genuine. Warlike Ref, he's so biased, and all of that. So some person is following me around on other YouTube channels, and any opportunity they get, they will make claims up about me to ensure that my credibility is damaged, to ensure that other people out there that come across or find me don't trust or believe me and turn on me just because of what Justin wants in his own dark fantasies. That is extremely disturbing behavior, very compulsive, strong fixations and obsessions over me. I wouldn't be surprised if Justin goes to bed and has dreams about me, not something I'm, impressed by or want to know, really. but it wouldn't surprise me if that's how it was, right? So that's just the exception there because it has happened and it happened more than once. I just wanted to bring it up so you're aware of that. But if we are referring back to the Robyn Smith situation and other party goers like Avery, more so, Carter, Logan have been on the receiving end as well in different ways, as what BBC has highlighted in the past, as in possible stalking, damage to the property, threats in real life, face to face, and so on. But beside that aspect, this particular focus today and what we're looking at is between Robyn and Avery exclusively. And you could argue and say, why is it so focused on just Avery when Carter was a host at the party, when Logan was a host at the party? Why are they not included within this conversation with Robyn exactly? It might be because at this so-called baby shower at this brewery, Jasmine Milan was there, Avery was too, former party host, but maybe Carter and Logan weren't present or they just didn't show up in the Snapchat post. So it didn't trigger Robyn as in, right, we need to go after them too. Because, you know, if the backstory and the motive is to do with whoever is the party host at the party back in the 4th of September and around that, they are the ones that should be accountable and responsible for Noah's death. So whenever Robyn sees or associates Avery with having a good time or doing other stuff, drinking or whatever, it serves as a reminder and a trigger for Robyn, as in that is something that Noah Presgrove can't be doing, unlike you, because he's no longer here and you were a host at that party, which Noah either died at or died near. So you shouldn't be able to live your life and have fun when our person, our family member, can't do that anymore. That person's life was taken away so quickly and shortly early on in life, but someone like you can just get on and have fun. How unfair is that? That could have been what was going through Robyn's mind at the time. So it's like in other ways in life, if, for example, you've been bullied, harmed, hurt at some point in the past, or someone has screwed you over, stabbed you in the back, cheated on you, you've suffered, you've struggled, you've gone through different waves, and even you've gone through possible grief as well in different ways. And then what happens afterwards? You are reminded of that person that once hurt you. You look online, social media, there's some kind of reminder, a photo, a video of that said person, a bad individual, and look at what they're doing right now. Look at where they are compared to where you might be. You could be triggered by that. You could be hurt by it. How can that person continue on knowing what they've done to you? How can that person continue on and appear better off and more happy after you yourself are suffering directly and still to this day because of someone else? And you're reminded of that someone else. That's more direct. How can that person continue on like nothing happened whilst you sit back and suffer? Everybody reacts and acts differently. Just because if you are sitting back or you are struggling, that is not a weakness and that isn't a bad thing upon you. It should never be seen that way. But understandably, it can be an unfair feeling when you're looking outwards perspective, you see something or someone else who may be directly responsible for your struggles or bad things that have happened, and they're just continuing on. They should pay the price. They should struggle. They should suffer as much as you have. They should grieve as much as you have. They shouldn't just be able to just get off the hook and just continue on like nothing happened. There needs to be some consequences. Someone needs to pay. That anger, that frustration within, all these different emotions are all understandable as to what a person could be feeling. And if it's not direct, if it's more so a person you know of, right, and that person is out having fun, having a good time, you see that as a trigger, but not upon your own self, as in they have done something to you, but they have done something to another person that you know of and close to. That would be Robyn's situation, okay? Robyn, the aunt to Noah Presgrove, obviously close bond, emotional, and then whether Robyn was a friend to Avery or just simply knew of Avery because of Noah and all of that, acting on behalf as a representative of Noah, you're feeling it for Noah, you're feeling the unjustliness of it and how unfair the situation appears to be, okay? Just give me 1 second, I'm just going to close the curtain because there's twats outside distracting me with a yapping dog and it's annoying, okay? Fucking knobs. Anyway, apologies about that. Hopefully that will do. I'm not cutting it because I'm keeping this raw in the moment, so let me just tap the brightness to readjust that. I don't need distractions by cretins. That doesn't just mean, online, it means in real life too. Cretins are all over the place. This is a serious time, okay? Just make sure the angle's just about there. Okay. Apologies about this, I just want to make sure that it's all focused and locked in because the tripod is very wonky in a way. So hopefully that is okay. Apologies if it's a little bit off center. But yeah, in regard to Robyn Smith at the time, it's important to look back at the dates. When looking at the dates, it's only a few weeks after Noah's death, so emotionally things are going to be running really high. It's going to be quite intense. But of course, it's important to acknowledge one person's struggles when compared to another individual's struggles out there may differ greatly. One person may be smiling through the pain, but deep down they're really struggling. Another person may be just outright sad, and it visibly shows. Both people are suffering, but are doing it in different ways. Both people may be trying to cope, but in different ways. Because of that difference, when one person sees the other person, it could be triggering. Triggering as in, inner words within the mind as, I'm looking at that person over there. They're smiling, they're laughing, they're joking, or even in a still photo, it just looks like they're having fun. How can you be having fun knowing that your close friend has died? How can you be taking selfies like nothing has happened? How can you just get on like nothing has happened? And it's one of those things where maybe Avery, not as a guarantee, but Avery could be doing all of that whilst inside something else is going on. A deep level of sadness, a deep level of whatever, different emotions. But that photo, that selfie, they might be smiling, but are they smiling inside? They may not be. It might just be a mask performing in the moment. But you could argue and say, in fairness, the act of going somewhere, the act of going to a baby shower, if you're really struggling or really down, then you might not even be able to get out of the bed to go. So you still make a personal choice to go somewhere, make a personal choice to take selfies, make a personal choice to smile and hang out with people. That is still at play. That needs to be considered. Whether it's deemed as a survival strategy, a coping mechanism, stay busy, hang out with people to get away from the noise. But other people may react different and actually isolate themselves from everyone and everything. Either way, different coping mechanisms, but it can be extremely difficult to see and understand it that way when you're an opposing person doing it in different ways, struggling in more open ways, visibly struggling and all of that. And you compare yourself to someone else who is going through the same situation but reacting and coping differently, it's hard to have that understanding, and it's normal to not be able to understand it from another person's point of view. Because at a high, intense emotional time, paired with another person in the same situation, high, intense emotional time, there might be a disconnect, there might be a language barrier, there might be a big misunderstanding or many misunderstandings. Even if you're in the same situation as someone else, if there is a slight difference, that can be much more tense and more intensified in general, if that makes sense. If the situation, or if you weren't struggling, but you knew someone that was struggling, you might be able to see a bit more of a overall perspective of for and against and why they're this way compared to what's really going on within. But when you're dealing with your own problems in the moment, and if you do use it as a comparison tool to someone else, it can make the situation worse and harder for yourself. Just like with, even if you weren't struggling and you were just getting on by and you compare yourself or your life to another person, it can kill and it can steal any basic joy that you may have had. That comparison tool is hard to escape from. That comparison tool can be can play on the mind. So for Robyn, in a very short space of time, dealing with what's already gone down, the loss of Noah, being sad because of that, being confused, not knowing what's really going on possibly up to a certain point, then seeing Avery where she is and what she's doing, maybe appearing as if nothing happened and moving on with life, but deep down under those layers could tell a different story. You never know. Robyn doesn't see it that way in the moment because you wouldn't expect Robyn to. You wouldn't really expect anyone to see it from multiple perspectives when you're caught up in a really bad time, right? When you're caught up in a really bad time, it's hard to look beyond your own feelings. Sometimes it can lead to tunnel vision. Sometimes from the outwards perspective, it looks like a person is being selfish by putting their feelings before anything else. But really, the reason why a person would be putting their feelings before everything else is just to be able to survive, just to be able to breathe. Maybe because it's the first time they're able to do it, or it's the first time that they've got no choice but to do it because the mind is going into complete shutdown or complete defense mechanism compared to any other time in the past. So for Robyn Smith and her situation, on a unique individual basis, it's understandable how they are and how they could be feeling. Yeah. Other Noah Presgrove family members may have not acted out, may have not done what Robyn did. But as I said, everybody deals with loss. Everybody deals with grief. Everybody deals with complex situations differently from one another. It's not always the same. People may go through patterns and cycles, but in different orders. Some people may retreat, and other people may get very busy or noisy to try and cope, to try and distract, to try and fight against it. Everybody has their own different ways. There's no singular linear way around it. Everyone and everything is different. For Robyn, seeing Avery would have been a trigger, the visual trigger, the expressions on Avery and Jasmine's face smiling, that is a trigger, as in seeing people you know of, people that were close to Noah, hung out with Noah, still here laughing, joking, partying, just weeks apart from Noah's death, like nothing ever happened. To Robyn, that could be considered disrespectful, but maybe Avery didn't mean that, or that wasn't the intent behind what they were doing and where they were at and the reasons behind it and so on. But in the moment, when you're the one struggling, just like them, but in different ways, you're not going to be able to see or pick up on all of that. And you wouldn't be expected to. Did Avery deserve it, though? From the looks of it, in that moment, no. Was it the right thing, what Robyn did, as in asking someone in the messenger chat to blast Avery's location? Was that the right thing to do? No. Was it reckless? Yes. But is it somewhat understandable as to why they were feeling that and had that attitude at the time? Like heat of the moment, raw emotion. Yeah, it's understandable. But it still shouldn't have happened. But it's not just all about Robyn Smith, because there'll be other people in the community, in the case, from different sides, that may have acted out at other moments, and they shouldn't have done that either. So it's not just all about Robyn. It's not like a witch hunt, but this is like a more of a case study because of the main focus and the post of today, which has come about on Facebook, and I'm just focusing in on it. So I understand Robyn, difficult time, high emotions to be expected. Lashing out or being triggered by another person because of those memories and what one person can do as to what another person can't, someone you're closer to, it's an understandable trigger. As for frustration or anger, trying to find someone to blame at a time of when there's no answers or there's a lack of clarity, that's understandable. The way they went about it isn't the right way, but in the moment, it might be the only thing that they were thinking. Sometimes rage or anger or frustration can take over a person. It can take over the entire body. They may regret it later on. So, yeah, it is hard. But once again, as for Avery, as for Jasmine, as for some others, maybe not in that particular photo or that snapshot, deep down, they may have been struggling as well in other ways on the same day, on a different day before, a day later. Who knows? If they're supposedly dealing with their own other demons, dealing with their own other resistance from strangers in the community. I mean, what we need to refer back to is where it all took place, right? What Robyn had in mind, it's more of her thinking, emotions, and attitude, and not direct action. Because Robyn, sorry, I've got any names mixed up there. Robyn is the one in terms of her attitude, emotions, and where she is in the moment, and how she's channeling it in the wrong way, but in the moment, it's understandable. Upon reflection now, it's easier to say it was the wrong thing, it was reckless, it was dangerous, it doesn't make them look good, it harms their image, their reputation, it doesn't do much good for Noah Presgrove, some could say it makes a mockery. Yeah, it's easy to be very critical now, especially if you're on the outside looking in. It's easier to be critical of Robyn Smith now. But at any point of time, it should be done to understand it from the point of view of some of the partygoers and friends in their way, when they've dealt with possible harassment, vigilantism, attacks, and some of that have been covered on my channel already, okay? Apologies if the flow may not be as intense this time round, but this is like a really raw outlook. It wasn't long ago or so when there was a Facebook post made by Justin Roy that publicly revealed that Jasmine Millan had attempted to remove herself from this world, from life. For Justin to share such a sensitive detail about that, or even just talk about Jasmine's mental health publicly, could be a breach of trust, a breach of privacy by plastering it online. Would Jasmine Millan want the public to know about her mental health struggles and Justin being the one to reveal it public? Reckless behaviour that. Justin shouldn't have done that. This is what I mean. We're not just focusing on Robyn Smith and their actions or attitude or behaviour. We're looking at a range of different people within the case and community, right? Look, people could try and then say, well, like Raf, when he's done videos, he shouldn't have done the things where he dresses up and wears women's clothing, as what some people claim because of weird fantasies going on within the head. If you look back at any of my videos, 99.9% of the time, there is a very clear disclaimer that this is the video, what we're looking at, this is what we're talking about, this is about Noah Presgrove, and now we've reached a cutoff. This is it. If you want to click off, feel free to do so. Now we're going to transition on to something else, something different, something that doesn't link. We're going to use some lightheartedness to cut through the darkness, and that's it. Disclaimers were given all the time to separate case from something else, but people ignored the disclaimer and then put an attack on me to try and tarnish me in many ways. Justin's done that, Jan Fiorillo's done that, Pam Feldman Garrison's done that, and some other cretins as well. Unnecessary behaviour, really unnecessary. Look at the context, you look at the backstory, you look at the disclaimers, they're very clear. visually or auditory, verbally, it's all there, okay? People have the choice to watch, people have the choice to click off. It's as simple as. But people neglect that part, neglect the accountability part, and then put all the blame on me instead, which is very typical. So I thought I'd just put that in just for now. But anyway, the only thing that I will say is, which is kind of interesting, brought up partially before, when it came to that post of Avery at the brewery with Jasmine Milan and whoever else, why was Robyn questioning Avery and talking about blasting her location when it would also blast Jasmine's location too by being present? How come in that Facebook Messenger conversation, Robyn didn't say, oh, look, hey, here's Avery in this photo at a brewery, along with Jasmine Milan? There was no acknowledgement of Jasmine's name in that moment. So it came across as if Robyn wasn't angry at Jasmine Milan, even though Jasmine Milan was doing the same thing as Avery. This is where it becomes a little bit more selective, whether it be a form of grief, a moment of anger, a moment of bargaining and redistributing frustration towards one particular person instead of everyone within that shot, that camera angle. You know, I've not seen the beginning backstory, but it does make me think, in my opinion, that if Robyn Smith and the family were fed certain information or theories or ideas by someone or some people, you know, shifting the focus towards Avery being the one responsible and Avery being the one who should have to pay for whatever they've done or hosting the party and so on. So if there's a photo, which there was, of Avery smiling, having fun, Robyn sees that as a trigger. How dare you do that and have fun when one of my own can't do that because of you in some way? But because Jasmine Milan is at the same location having fun and smiling, just like with Avery, Jasmine is actually smiling more than Avery is, and Robyn is more outraged by Avery than Jasmine, without even considering Jasmine in that conversation. So it seemed like in that moment, whilst it's a heat of the moment and taking it out on someone and expressing those frustrations privately in response to someone's post online or wherever, it seems like Robyn in that moment already had her mind set based on possible outside previous influences pointing her in the direction as to where to channel that anger and frustration in the wrong way, but towards a person who could be innocent or not. Whilst Jasmine Milan is given a free pass because it's not Jasmine's fault. What I'm saying is, in regard to context, even though there's a lack of it, it seems like Robyn Smith is more focused on Avery for a pre-existing reason and possible thoughts of they're responsible for Noah's death. But as for Jasmine, who's living life, as you could call it, because they're smiling, they could be chatty, they could be talkative at the party, at a baby shower, wherever. It's okay for Jasmine Milan to attend that baby shower or whatever, smile and be happy, but for Avery to attend it and be in the same photo as Jasmine smiling, no, that's not good. Avery deserves her location to be blasted, but as for Jasmine Milan, whose location is going to be indirectly blasted at the party because we're at the same place, she's not our priority, she's not our focus. We're only focused on Avery and angry at Avery and not Jasmine. So it can't be that the general vague theme of here are people having a good time despite what's happened to Noah and they're supposed to be friends. They should be grieving. I don't think it comes down to the direct motive about general grief and the difference of how people cope and deal with grief in different ways. It seems like with Robyn, it's on a deeper level behind a form of responsibility, regardless of what they're doing or where they are. If they're at least walking free, then it's a trigger. Jasmine's having a good time, but we don't need to focus on her. She might be grieving, she might be dealing it in other ways. We don't need to get angry or blast her location directly or even refer to her because she's not responsible for Noah's death, maybe. But as for Avery, different story, same location with Jasmine, but this is an exception. It seems very selective, or at least at the time. But this is the thing. Robyn Smith, back then and before, despite them, their own actions and accountability putting at risk and at harm a person of interest within the case, which wouldn't do good for the partygoer, Avery, wouldn't do much good for her. It could put her in danger, could lead to vigilantism, could lead to attacks by the general public. What good does that do? But furthermore, it just wouldn't do much good for the case of Noah Presgrove. I mean, it's like with the Dylan Rounds case, the father, Justin Rounds, wanted to spill blood or something upon the supposed killer or the friend's killer to get them to confess and use physicality and all of that. Very understandable. Did it happen? No. Did the wife, the mother to Dylan Rounds, Candice Cooley, tell Justin Rounds off a lot? Definitely. You know, making it about himself, drifting away, letting emotions overrule the body and the mind, using displacement on a person of interest, but in a reckless way, which could ultimately, at the end of the day, harm the case and harm the whole justice and harm the whole, direction for what you want out of the case, the outcome. Like your own feelings and your own struggles can be either your own downfall or more so the downfall of a case. But it's really hard to go through it all, and somehow you have to find the strength to put up with it, to work with the devil, to work with the enemies, to just get through it for the sake of Noah, for the sake of Dylan Rounds, for the sake of a family member, a friend, or a loved one. Someone has passed away in unfortunate, mysterious, maybe criminal circumstances, who knows? And you might think or feel who could be responsible. You might be fed information in the air, whether it's completely true or not. And you got to control those emotions, because if you let it run wild and you react, you could end up risking the case and the whole justice, and you might not get any at the end of the day if you're too reckless. So it requires a level of self-control, which can be difficult. That's why at times like that, there needs to be a support system of other people around to keep you grounded. As for Robyn Smith, possible vulnerable individual at the time, if any information was whispered into their ear, any poison, any toxicity, any false claims, which then shifted her focus, her anger, her frustration, her form of a portion of, grief, and shifting that grief and that reaction response onto one singular person, not the right way, but in a vulnerable time and moment, not quite thinking clear, not quite thinking straight because of all the noise and dealing with the heaviness within. Everybody reacts and acts differently. You need to, and if that's true, that false information was whispered into Robyn's ear, which ultimately led to Robyn doing what she did, wanting Avery location to be revealed, and a form of intimidation too. Whether it physically happened or it was just the attitude and the intent, it's still bad, it's still dangerous, it's still reckless, it still harms the case, or it could do for Noah. But in the moment, they're not quite thinking straight. If anyone before that was responsible for making Robyn think that way, they should have known better to act more accordingly, depending on their role and position. Where you call it forms of safeguarding, forms of different responsibilities. There's like a tier to it. You have a person within the case, a person of interest, or just a victim, family, friend to the person that has passed away, been injured, whatever. Are you in the fit place and state to be able to act accordingly? Maybe, maybe not. You might be struggling, going through a lot, which is very normal and understandable. You might be going through grief as well. So you might not be expected to make all the decisions, to do everything. You might need some time to breathe. You might take some time out to relax, whatever it is. But then if you've got another person who is functioning, who is able, who is stable, a family member, a friend, or a complete stranger more so, and they are whispering false claims into a person that is struggling, it's like a form of indoctrination and putting poison, false claims into the person's mind to turn them and make them channel it and target someone in an unnatural way. It's like taking advantage of a vulnerable person, because when someone's struggling, their defense can be down at times, they can be disarmed, so they might be prone and open to listening or believing everything when they're at a vulnerable place. That's not good. So you can almost like take control, as a stranger. You can turn someone into a monster, or you can turn someone in control, as in where they go and what they do next and who they take it out on. Robyn Smith is a fully grown adult. Should they know better? If they've got integrity and all of that, technically, yes, they should know better as to what to do and what not to do. But like with anyone in life, at a time of a low moment or a difficult time, a very stressful time, in terms of thinking critically, that can go out of the window. In terms of being able to simply breathe effectively, that can go out of the window. You may not be expected to make all the right decisions and choices, but what should be expected or what should be hoped for is that there is another family member, another friend about, another person around as a network to be that anchor, to be that form of support and stability. When one person falls, there should be another person to catch them and not just to let them drop and spiral. Because if you do, they spiral, they may harm something, they may harm themselves, they may damage a case, they may damage their reputation. To prevent that from all happening, you catch them before it's too late. You safeguard them whilst they are vulnerable. So then when they're back on their feet, back to normal, not much was done. In some ways, that failed there. Whoever fed the information in the first place, whoever was around at the time. But then, when you've got Robyn Smith, who reached out to someone in a Facebook Messenger, their intent, their attitude wasn't good, it doesn't look good, it looks dangerous. Was it followed through with? Maybe not. So, it's not the end of the world, it didn't actually happen, the location wasn't actually really posted public, so no harm done. Doesn't matter whether it's done or not, the intent behind it is the critical part. That's the dangerous part, that's the problematic part. It's the equivalent with Alicia, Caden Press's mom, who may have not acted on it, but as we saw, as for evidence, there was a group chat back in 2024, I think December, where Alicia did a call to arms and said, besides Brooke Bounds-Carter and going after her, anyone, or just in general, to help report Warlight Rath's videos to YouTube, get them taken down. Why exactly? No context, but when other people in that group chat were saying, how can we help? What can we do? And then Alicia says, well, what you can do, for example, is report Warlight Rath's videos to YouTube. That is a call to arms. Whether Alicia acts on it herself and does it, or if she just gets the other people to do it on behalf of her, like dirty work, even if it never came to much, never amounted, and no one did take that direct action, and it was just simply a thought, a passing thought, it was just conversation and it did not follow through with action. Yeah, you could say, well, at least it didn't come to much then. No harm done, right? It's the intent, it's the attitude. If the intent and attitude doesn't change, it could happen again in the future, and for that time it could be more real and it could be followed through with actual action. Just because it didn't happen this time doesn't mean to say it's not going to happen next time. It could happen next time round. That's why, beside action, just words speak volume. Words themselves say a lot about someone and where their mind is really at. Whether they follow through with something or not, with that mindset, it's always that thought of, it's always there within. If they've got grievances, if they've got trouble with you, if they have a grudge against you, and they say lots of stuff and express lots of frustration privately, which is meant to stay within those four walls and not be expressed public, because maybe they don't intend to follow through with those actions. If it is released public or leaked public, when someone sees it who's on the receiving end, they're going to assume, oh my goodness, that is bad, that is dangerous. Maybe sometimes it's just a conversation in the moment, letting steam off, frustration. I don't know the absolute context, but let's just say if the brewery and that event, the location wasn't publicly revealed and nothing happened, if that convo between Robyn and whoever remained private, no one would know, and it would be ignorance bliss, no danger, no harm done, it's all fine and okay, no need to worry. And under those circumstances, if no actions followed through, maybe it was just a moment where Robyn had a lot of frustration, anger, blowing off steam, said what she had to say, wanted certain things to happen, later regretted it and was thankful that it didn't get followed through with. Example, very rough one, is if you were frustrated, angry at a person and you wanted them to pay. So you were in a conversation with someone in a group chat and said, right, we need a hitman, we need a contract killer, get them hired and take them out. It needs to be done, let's say, as an example. And then you have it, you're letting all that emotion off, steam in the moment, really intense and full on. You mean everything you say in the moment, but you really regret it afterwards. You don't actually mean it when you come back round, when, you calm down, you regret what you said or what you wished for. But sometimes it can be too late then, and you think, oh God, what have I just done? What have I just wished for or asked upon? Yeah, but then other times when it didn't go any further past that point, it was just a matter of blowing off steam in the moment, as bad as the wording may sound and the actions and the intent. If it never followed through with action and it was just a matter of letting steam off, some could argue and say no harm done. But the reason why just the attitude and intent, even if action isn't followed up, is important with Robyn Smith and this whole post and conversation, is because of similar themes of what Avery, Logan and Carter have supposedly gone through maybe other times, even if it didn't involve Robyn Smith, separate occasions. If they know what it's like to already go through harassment, attacks and stuff like that, if it's already happened earlier on, as what Brooke said, with Robyn's actions or in the moment, heat of the moment, intent can be triggering. I said triggering for Robyn when she sees other people having a good time when Noah can't. But in this situation, triggering for the ones on the other end, Avery, Jasmine, Logan, whoever, Brooke Bounds, Carter, seeing it, triggering for them, having well known what those party girls and people have already gone through previous. And now you got someone almost doing a repeat of it, or it could be like history repeating itself. So it can get people's backs up against the wall and think, how dare you do that? Even if you didn't follow through with it, just that intent and attitude of considering it is bad, reckless, not good whatsoever, doesn't make you a good person after what they have already gone through, after what someone knows of another person has already gone through, in which they could be subjected to it again because of Robyn's actions. That's not good at all. As said, for Robyn, there are triggers, and that's understandable behind their behaviour, their intent in the moment. But then there are triggers for the party girls or the friends, parents of the party girls who have seen it before, who have experienced it before, who have known the impacts, the damage it can cause when it comes to revealing locations or threatening behaviour along the lines of that. There's triggers for both sides in different ways, just like how there are different ways of coping and reacting to different situations or dealing with the same situation but under different circumstances. That's what creates that split and divide where the people from one side can't see it from the other side and vice versa. It creates a disconnect, it creates isolation, and with isolation can come frustration, and with frustration can come taking it out on people, and sometimes taking it out on the wrong people, wrong place, wrong time. It doesn't do much good for the person taking it out in the first place. It doesn't do much good for the person on the receiving end, it being taken out on. Because as much as Robyn Smith may have been hurting in that moment online, after what they did, and onwards, it probably didn't make them feel that much better. So when a person is struggling, you want revenge, you want someone to pay, you want someone to suffer. You might get your wish, you may act on it yourself. You get like a few seconds of satisfaction. Then after that, there might be a baseline again. You don't feel any better, you don't feel any happier. It was just a small little dopamine hit and that was it. And then you go back to struggling. So was it really worth it after all that? It's understandable how you might not consider that all in the moment. Deep down, what a person really wants is either justice, or they really want that person back under certain circumstances, or they just want peace and a form of happiness. As much as you may hate someone continuing on or doing well themselves, and you wish you were them, or you wish they weren't in that place and they were where you are or once were, All that's understandable, but deep down what a person really wants, who's struggling, isn't the downfall of another person, but the rise of themselves with luck, chance, and miracles and anything else in between. Maybe things to happen, other people come into the life, whatever it may be. It might not completely fix everything from the past, and it's not going to overwrite everything from the past, but it's going to serve as a stepping stone, or it's going to allow us a form of movement in being able to either heal, find peace, move forwards without forgetting, without neglecting, but to be able to breathe once again and to be able to feel more once again. Because if other people can, then why can't you? You should be deserving of it too, in different ways. It's not always that easy. But in terms of what people really want compared to what they think they want, there can be a difference. So hopefully that makes sense there. What Robyn thought she wanted at the time, whether that be revenge, to send a message, to put her on warning, on note that we're watching you. That's what Robyn wanted in the moment, but probably not what she wanted long term. She wanted other means or other outcomes in different ways, more legal proceedings and all that. I think that might be what Mike was referring to in the Facebook post and comments. How in the very early days, Robyn Smith with the Facebook Messenger was all about, well, could be interpreted as vigilantism, mob mentality, justice in reckless, harmful ways, justice and making someone pay or suffer to get revenge, but not through the normal legal proceedings. And then fast forward onwards, you got Robyn inquiring in that messenger chat about, it's now time to do that wrongful death lawsuit. We need to get a lawyer. We need to go for it around the right ways, the legal ways. We've got to do it properly. We've got to do it formally. We've got to get justice. That's a massive contrast, isn't it? Would you say it's hypocritical? Under the different circumstances of what the person was going through at one point early on, post-death of Noah, when emotions and everything is running quite high, they're in a vulnerable place, they're struggling possibly. If there's no safeguarding or there's a lack of other people about to support them properly and make sure they don't act out, their actions then reckless, but there's a backstory, a reason behind it. Given time and months to go through the grieving process and reach certain points of a checkpoint here or there, controlling one's emotions, self-control, and then ultimately realizing what they really want, not what they think they want. What they really want is justice. What they really want is for someone to be held accountable, but what they really want is for the methods and the ways to be done properly and done through the legal route, so it's concrete and done the right way. What she did back then could be interpreted as the wrong way. What's being done onwards is somewhat the right way, because not everyone's going to agree with the wrongful death lawsuit, but it being done through the legal way is the right way. What was done in the early days was reckless and dangerous for themselves and for the people on the receiving end, right? Is it hypocritical though? In my opinion, I wouldn't say it is, even though it technically is. When it comes to the emotional, mental state of a person, you're comparing a person that may have not been of sound mind versus a person that was functional, aware, and alert. If there's any backstory, well, I might not know of, but you can't really compare a person of sound mind at one point to a previous time where they were not of sound mind and they weren't themselves or truly themselves. Like two different people in a way. But I said that aspect, I'm not saying you can justify everything, right? One of those things where there still needs to be a bit of accountability. Because if a person was struggling or playing up and you're on the receiving end of it, or there's a bit of collateral damage in other circumstances, it might not be them talking, it's their darkness, it's their demons. That's very understandable because it doesn't define who they really are by nature. But every now and then, you can't just always excuse a person's illness for their actions, Because if you did excuse a person's mental health or illnesses for their actions and their toxicity, well, then you could just use it as an excuse for everything. So anytime you're hurt by them, you can just say, oh, well, they're struggling. It is what it is. You shouldn't have to settle for that. They still need to take a form of accountability at times, because if they don't, they'll think it's okay and acceptable to keep on hurting people. And then they can just use their own excuse and say, mental health card, can't help it, oh well. It can go from one extreme to another. That's why the balance is needed. And under the circumstances of what I know of, what Robyn going through at the time, I understand. What Avery and the other partygoers are going through around that time in their own ways and dealing with other background stuff, supposedly, understandable. But there is a divide and a split in between at that time. And it still runs on till this day. It's just that the actions and reactions since have changed slightly different, more so through legal representation and legal talk compared to in the early days where it was more of a mob mentality. From one side I get it, because with Alicia, that call to arms to try and get my videos taken down, encourage others to come after me. Whether it directly happened or not, coincidence that my videos were taken down with time, it's unfortunate, wasn't the right way to go about it. Another way to go about it, which never happened, would be if Alicia reached out and said, Warlight Raf, can you please stop making videos about me? Can you please give an update video and provide context on something? Never done. From what I remember, not done. Should have been done. Would have been a better, more healthier way to do it. But Alicia's situation compared to Robyn's situation, vastly different. Alicia could struggle, be tense at the time. But Alicia is not Noah's son in that case. Or Alicia isn't the aunt to Noah, so as for that emotional, deep bond connection, that hurt isn't quite the same way as what Robyn would be feeling. Still, I said the actions wasn't the right thing about it. But what I do want to add on to now is a bit of a psychological aspect, so just hold on with me. Then a bit later, we'll get onto the next screenshots of a bit more context from elsewhere, because some people could think, am I defending Robyn Smith too much? Well, under this one example, what we're looking at, I'm trying to focus in. There's other examples where it could shine Robyn maybe in a darker light, maybe. We'll get to that later, just don't go anywhere for that full context. But as said, in terms of the process in general, stages of grief, I'm not going to get too deep into it, so no really hard trigger warnings. If you want to pause the video for a second, you can, or mute the video if you want, if you're more comfortable. But basically, some could say 5, others could say 6 or 7 stages of grief. Guess it depends. Some people may feel more emotions than other people and so on, but let's just give a bit of a list. So you've got, in no particular order, let's just put it that way, because it's not linear. People go through different stages of grief in different orders. Some people may relive grief at a later point if it wasn't dealt with, or you didn't go through the proper stages. You didn't grieve originally because you chose not to. Your mind went numb, or defense mechanism, or was just so busy with other stuff and other things going on, other responsibilities, other things in life, where you had the right to grieve, but you didn't have the time to, or at least you didn't think you had the time, so you suppressed it, and then that can be painful itself and harder down the line. It's understandable. But by default, different stages can be denial, anger, possible guilt, bargaining, allow/depression, and acceptance. Normally, acceptance is at the very end. And at the beginning, it could be denial or shock. When something so unexpected happens, there can be denial, one of the stages of grief. It can be the beginning one. Other times it could be sadness and other emotions. Depends on the circumstance. And as said, with grief and the stages of it, that can be experienced through the loss and the passing of someone you know of, Or it could just simply be down to the loss of a relationship, the loss of a friendship. As long as you've spent time or got to know someone, when they're no longer around to hang out with or talk to, it can come across as a loss. And when it's unexpected, it can be impactful and it can be painful. Under other circumstances, because it can get very complex, right? Even the complex situations of loss, a person is still entitled to go through the grief and experience it however they do so whilst going with the flow. It's different for everyone. But just a very brief, vague understanding of each stage and the meaning I'll try and provide out briefly now. So denial is as a form of shock. It's a self-defense mechanism, sometimes with the brain not being able to process what you see, what you have experienced, what's going on in the moment. Maybe because it's so unexpected, out of the blue. You weren't anticipating it. Swept under your feet, the rug pulled, the sheets pulled off you. It's that sudden shock met with reality and self-defense mechanism. The mind, the subconscious mind, wants to bury itself and retreat to a safe place, a form of denial because of shock. Taking that time to process everything because it's also very overwhelming. Denial to protect the mind in the moment, but also denial just down to outright shock, trying to handle the situation but not really knowing how to, trying to grasp reality when it's so painful and difficult, not wanting to accept the reality because it means it makes everything real, whether that be denial of a person's own feelings, denial of a person's own change within life or roles or responsibilities. Having to accept, which is the last stage in it all, to accept at the beginning is impossible. To even consider accepting it for how it is isn't possible. So that's why there's denial. And with denial, there can be a nullifying or a numbing effect in which you don't really feel too much, or you don't feel the realness of it because it's so surreal. It's hard to even comprehend what's happened. Never expected it. It can be intense. It can be beyond. It could be not so bad. It just depends. Everyone's different. You can have an intense experience of that is if you had a divorce with someone, or you were best friends and then someone just walked away or bullied you. You could go through grief there as well in intense ways. The key thing is these stages of grief are unique and to the individual at hand. It's not a means of comparing, it's not a competition, and it's not about playing down or putting down one person's grief over another person's, because one is deemed as more important, the other one is deemed as not as big of a deal. They're all important individually. They're all very real, and the suffering is as well. So, besides denial as partially a defense mechanism, coming to terms with it in the moment, there can come a form of anger, and that can be in different ways. It could be anger towards yourself, having a go at yourself, feeling with a slight crossover of guilt, feeling that you're responsible when likely you're not. But in the moment, you're trying to blame anything or anyone, even if it's yourself, even if it causes additional pain. The reason why you go through the stage of anger is because of a loss of someone, which also means like a loss of control, not being able to control the situation, not knowing what to do can lead to frustration and anger. Not knowing what's going on or lacking closure or answers can lead to anger and frustration. Other times, anger can come about as a form of blaming yourself out of desperation for finding something at fault just for the sake of a bit of peace and a bit of closure. Sometimes in the short term, people will seek closure through anger or blame, taking it out on the wrong people, collateral damage, or even taking it out on themselves with a possible ounce of guilt. even when it's not the case. They just want closure, even if it means it hurts themselves in the process. They just want closure or a small aspect of it. But it doesn't ultimately lead to peace. It's just a short-term feeling, and it can cause its own problems. Anger can also be directed towards the person that's no longer present. If someone has walked away or broken up, divorced, or stabbed you in the back, or bullied you and just disappeared, they're still alive, but you've lost a connection, and all that time spent, you're going to be angry. After all that time and effort you put in, you're going to be angry. But then you're going to be angry at that person for not being loyal. You'll be angry at that person for not sticking around, and so on. Under more sensitive, more complex situations, when a person has gone elsewhere, it's still understandable why you'll be angry towards the person. Even if the other person somehow was deemed or labelled by some as a victim somehow, you still got the right to be angry in your own personal ways, because you likely have quite a valid reason for it within. As said, we don't need to get too deep or too specific with all different examples, but anger can be directed towards oneself. It can be directed towards other people out there as collateral damage. It can be directed towards the one at hand that you have or not in the presence of anymore, in whatever way. It's understandable. Anger can cross over with guilt, as said. Guilt, for some, is a stage. For others, it may not be felt, where it feels like you should have done more, you could have done more. Look at Caden Pressey in the Noah Presgrove case, feeling guilty for not giving Noah a ride home. Said it tears him up till this day. Caden didn't, because he was being responsible, because he was drinking. Noah at the time said, I understand, it's okay, everything was fine. Noah respected it. So Caden should never have to blame himself for being responsible for Noah's death under those circumstances. But to Caden, he will feel responsible because it is a form of grief. It's a stage of guilt. So whilst to the outwards people looking in, it can be seen as irrational thinking, but for the person struggling at hand, it's rational thinking. In the moment, rational thinking, believing that you're at fault, when the reality is it's irrational thoughts. It's the mind taking over. It's the mind using guilt against you, your mind, your worst enemy. Why? To make you suffer, to make you struggle more? Well, it feels that way, but it's likely the mind trying to grab a sense of reality, even if by nature it isn't really the reality, but it's done out of desperation. It's a self-defense mechanism of the brain, which isn't protecting you, but at the same time it kind of is, by trying to find a reason and an explanation behind why someone has done what they've done to you, why someone has screwed you over, why something bad has happened for it to go the way it did. The mind blaming itself as a desperation tactic, as a form of closure. Any form of closure is probably desired of by that person in the moment, because closure can mean peace, and peace can mean all the noise being stopped, drowned out, shutting the world out, shutting all the darkness out, being able to find an escape. Closure can be that exit. Closure could be a form of acceptance, but it's a false vision. It's not the true end game. The mind sees it, or it's more like a mirage. You're convinced that it's what it's meant to be. But when you finally get to that point, it isn't. And then it's not great. It's like an early exit door, but it's a false door. You think that by being angry at yourself, or you think that by feeling guilty or blaming yourself for not doing enough, for not giving enough, for not being there, by blaming yourself, it means you somehow managed to gain back a level of control. You gain back a level of control. If you blame yourself, you know the reason and why something happened. Doesn't fix everything, but it at least brings a level of closure. When you know what you're dealing with at hand or what's at fault, there's no uncertainty. The unknown factor has been removed. Desperately trying to gain back a level of control, even if it means harming, not to be taken out of context, harming oneself by blame, self-blame and guilt as a means of desperately reaching a form of closure, which isn't true closure, because all that's going on is irrational thoughts. But to that sufferer in the moment, it's rational. It's all they know. There'll be a level of desperation to breathe, a level of desperation just to feel a little bit of peace and quiet for a short period. But anger, guilt, self-defense mechanism, but the mind working against oneself whilst trying to protect oneself. It's a bit of a paradox in a way, paradoxically speaking, trying to protect itself to gain back control and peace and closure, but at the same time hurting oneself mentally by going and replaying memories and blaming oneself when in reality it was never your fault to begin with. Never your fault. Because there's a lot of factors at play out of your control. There's a lot of factors at play out of the other person's disposal and all that. It doesn't just all fall back on you. You aren't always the catalyst behind everything and anything in life, but it'll be hard to see it that way in the moment when you are the one struggling. So like with Robyn Smith, when everything's all going on and other people in the background, they can't just function perfect. There will be dysfunctions, there will be limitations, there will be weaknesses, there will be regret, there will be messy times. It's not perfect, it never is under those circumstances. That's why if there's anyone about that is more functional, they need to act accordingly. That person on the receiving end of that conversation in the Facebook Messenger with Robyn should have talked her down and said, hey, are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure you want to be posting this thing public? Why not just give it a few days just to relax and rethink things, because you might regret it. Let's talk about something else. Let's redirect this energy and darkness into something more meaningful. A more stable person at hand on the receiving end of the conversation with Robyn should have, or not should, could have done more. And I say could because I don't know the full context. That conversation, what you see with Robyn and whoever, it's only a small portion. More could have been said down below. I don't know. I'm considering the out of context nature, the unknown, that the other person could have said, hey, are you sure you want to do that, Robyn? You know, think about it. And then Robyn later on says, you know what? You're right. I shouldn't have said anything. It's an outburst. My mistake. My apologies. I regret what I said. I don't mean it upon Avery in that sense. I don't want that for her or anyone in this case. We need to do it the right way. I'm not saying that's what happened in the conversation, but it could have. And if it was cropped out, it makes Robyn look worse with the limited context. That's if that was the case. As said, I'm trying to do the best I can for this balance, but I do know, unfortunately, people on one side more than the other, not the dark side, but other sides, are just not going to even consider watching this video to understand this part of the video. They might click on it, they might see the title, they might see the thumbnail and just assume that it's one-sided. But, you know, everyone watching right now, as a witness to me and how I'm talking, you can clearly see, or hopefully you can see, it's trying to be balanced from both sides and angles, right? And witnesses are needed and are important in case things do get messy, or if I get attacked or false claims are made. So just wanted to say that as a heads up. If there are any witnesses, if anyone wants to clip the videos as proof and evidence to show the balance, that is welcomed and appreciated. Now, besides the anger and the guilt, the irrational stage, which is to them considered rational thinking, can come about a form of bargaining. That could be followed immediately or a bit later on, depending on the order. Bargaining is where there's a bit of introspection. There's a bit of critical thinking, where you might get to a stage where you're burnt out, you're exhausted, or the guard has lowered, or you've reached a slight form of temporary relief or peace through blaming oneself and guilt. But then bargaining is where you start boxing things up, ordering it all up, you know, structuring it as in, well, what are all the factors at play? What are all the things to consider? What happened? What caused what? What's the cause and the effect? Not just for one thing, but multiple. What was I in control of? What wasn't I in control of? And for the other person too. What actually happened? It can be also a form of introspection, reflecting back on everything that's happened leading up to this point. Bargaining as in possibly reaching a form of leniency, being a little bit more kind on oneself, or being kind on another person at hand you once blamed or felt was responsible for. You start to open up a little bit and consider the multiple perspectives. You widen it in a holistic way. You take in consideration everything else at play, which may have played a contributing role to the outcome. Other factors which had nothing to do with you. Other things that were at fault and to blame. So going from shifting all the blame focus on yourself or anger towards someone else, you're now distributing it. You're now reordering, restructuring it, rewiring what's happened, a form of or deconditioning and de-escalation of the situation. The mind isn't as high in the self-defense mechanism. The hypervigilance isn't as high. The tension isn't as high. There's a bit more breathing room and space to be able to reflect, look back on, compare, contrast, critical thinking, introspection, to make more sense of the situation, to be more grounded with reality and the reality of what has gone on, not what you think has gone on. It eases the mind. It brings about a bit more peace and a bit more closure and a bit more self-awareness and a little bit more leniency on yourself. The mind eases and relaxes a little bit. But then can come the stage of a low or depression, in which you got to a point where you feel safe. You got to a point where you can drop all that baggage. You could drop that mask. You could drop that persona. You can finally breathe and feel again. You would think the moment you can relax and stop blaming yourself, everything gets better. But no, that is when it can reach a crash period. After all that time of holding things up, blaming, all the intense emotions and whatnot in different directions and roles, when all that is let go of or put on pause, it leads to a crash of exhaustion, or putting a mask on for so long it slips. The moment you can finally be safe, the moment you can finally be at peace, the moment when everything feels like it's finally falling into place when it comes to understanding the situation, is when there's a sudden drop in emotion from one extreme to another, from all that tension and baggage to now finally having nothing. It's like a slow release, then hit with a big drop of what now, what next, what you're supposed to do. And also just the side effects of the exhaustion over time, the crash, recuperating, recovering, but very slowly, physically and psychologically. Hopefully that makes sense. The depression or the low can be changes in mood, behavior and thoughts and feelings. It could also come down to just simply like a zombified effect. It comes down to the period of all that high intensity beforehand, from anger, confusion, frustration, sadness, of course, and all of that. Now it's like just exhausted, not much left in the tank, little energy to do things or to feel stuff. A time of when you can let everything go or be at a little bit more peace. But after everything that's gone on, there might not be much to feel or to give. It can be like a slow recovery, a slow period of like refueling the body and the mind, but there's no given or set time as to when. I say it's very vague, but it's just like an example. And then once that goes or stops, or more so once it eases, then you can get to the form of acceptance, where you start feeling things once again, but you still maintain that bargaining and that reflection, that introspection, that critical thinking, maintaining that and accepting what's happened, what the situation is for you, for the other person, accepting just a reality, maybe accepting that can't go back in time, accepting that you need to move forwards, or in some circumstances accepting that you deserve better and you deserve to be treated better. If in between During grief, it was hard to see it that way or feel it that way, so it led to not pursuing, not accepting, but now may feel more the time to accept it, to welcome it. So they're the different stages. What stage are people in within the Noah Presgrove case exactly? Well, denial, I think, may have gone past that. Anger, frustration, kind of gone through that. Guilt, don't know, because that's not really been talked about openly. Bargaining, could be the bargaining stage, as in accepting what's happened, but not complete acceptance. Understanding the situation, what is needed now. But it could be like lingering on anger, guilt, frustration / bargaining, I would say. Just vaguely speaking, okay? So if there's anything else that I need to add on later, I'll do so. But what we need to briefly go on to now is the alternatives as for events that had gone on or involving Robyn Smith and other partygoers like Carter Combs and anything else in between. Let's head on over right now. Starting off with a miscellaneous thing, because this just goes to show once again the theme of overly emotional charged behaviour within the case in regard to people that have no right to be acting overly emotional in the first place. With exceptions with those within the case going through tough times, Jasmine Hall had this to say in regard to my video from last night or the day before. Jasmine said, "I want to watch the video, but listening to Warlight Wrath for over an hour is a bit torturous." I mean, how dramatic could you get, Jasmine? Isn't it funny how yet another person complaining about me by overly acting in an emotional way is wearing a pair of wonky glasses? Why is it with people wearing glasses and complaining about me? Is there some kind of theme going on or something? If I do a video next time around and I wear a pair of glasses, am I suddenly going to be loved and praised by everyone all of a sudden? If I tilt my glasses, are people going to think, oh yeah, he's one of us? What? What is going on? Torturers. What is this? Is this worse than Chinese waterboarding? Are you saying that my voice, listening to it for 1 hour long, is worse than the CIA locking someone up in a cell playing I'm a Barbie girl in a whatever world? Really? On repeat. Dramatic. Absolutely dramatic. And you know what's ironic? Jasmine Hall says, I like stuff and things. Oh, you like stuff and things? Except for Warlight Wrath's voice. What a shame. But beside that, they say, I am an artist, a creative soul, music lover. The rest is still unwritten. Well, you should know, Jasmine, you incompetent plank. If you're an artist, it means you're creative. It means you have depth, artistic impressions, artistic depth behind the meaning of stuff. Abstract art. What I do, how I talk, what I show can be a form of abstract art. If you have high taste and high class, Jasmine, which clearly you're lacking, if you did have it, you would be able to appreciate the depth behind the videos and the deeper inner meanings, setting aside emotions and feelings, setting aside certain auditory aspects, because whether you like music, creative soul, art, music can be art, the sounds can be art, but you can put something on mute. Something on mute can be a form of abstract art to show the inner suffering, the inner isolation someone may feel, trapped in their soul, trapped in their mind, talking, but it's muted. You mute my video, Jasmine Hall. You can read the transcript of the YouTube video without having to listen to my torturous voice. Then you can treat it as abstract art and say, here's the inner workings of a creator suffering at hand, not being able to express themselves because of being that internal silence or an external silence by opposition. Such creative abstract art indeed. Very gripping. Even Tim Daniels on the edge of his seat, ready to faint because of how overly, overwhelmed he is with joy. Come on, Jasmine, there's ways around it. Take those glasses off and understand you can watch a video. You don't have to listen to the voice. You can mute the voice. You can mute the video and look at the transcript. There's always ways around it. Other people complain, oh, well, like Raph, he talks too slow. He's not talking fast enough. Well, adjust the speed on YouTube. You have the options. You have the tools. Take action. Don't just sit about being dramatic. Jasmine! Dramatic. Very dramatic. Not a good artist. Moving on. This is the context in regard to what we're talking about today, as in, Mike Johnson did his post and showed the screenshot of the convo of Robyn and whoever. I did the video in the past. Was Avery Combs in danger? Never seen before, shocking text. And at the time, it was never seen before. So all the other whiners out there that say, oh, you're just focusing on this and that, pull your head out and look at the never seen before stuff at a given time. I did my video the 26th of February 2025. It's almost 1 year ago I did this post. 1 year later, roughly, it's been reposted by other people on Facebook. So that's why I'm wondering what's changed or what's happened for it to resurface exactly. I said, for me, it's worth doing this video because it's more updated, it's more raw, it's more deep, there's more perspective, more than ever. This is the deepest one done. Compared to the video that I did back then, this is a lot deeper. So it was needed to understand what's changed, how it links, and I think we've already found a lot of links within these videos. You know, there's so much that goes on within these videos, the depth, the links being made, and the understandings that people on the outer level just can't comprehend it, and there is progress being made on the sideline. Anyway, this was the extension or so of the convo which wasn't shared clearly by Mike Johnson. Not the full context, but just a bit more. Besides saying blessed a location, the other person said, looks like she has supporters. What does that mean exactly? And then Robyn says, well, Renee's daughter is one of her best friends. Renee's daughter, Jasmine Milan. And as in, looks like she has supporters, meaning Avery has a supporter, also known as Jasmine Milan, also known as in this selfie. That is what's meant by supporters. Jasmine, a supporter of Avery. Not a supporter, they're a friend. They know each other. Weird way of wording it. But Robyn acknowledges it and says, Renee's daughter, Jasmine Milan, without mentioning the name, is one of her best friends. And that's it. So Robyn knows that, Robyn knows that Jasmine Milan is best friend to Avery, but Robyn is only concerned about Avery and not Jasmine. You would think that if Robyn can't stand Avery and wants her to pay, you would also apply that to anyone that associates with Avery. You know, like when you've got a person that's done a really, really bad crime and it's well known and documented, you're going to hate that person likely. Especially on the receiving end of it, you're going to hate that person. But then if you have other people around that are friends and close friends with that bad person, after everything that's gone on and been publicised, you'd also hate all those other people that associate with that person. Birds of a feather flock together, so you should equally dislike them all. But Robyn doesn't really show that here. Robyn says blessed her location, blessed Avery's, not Jasmine's, but technically it would be Jasmine too because of physically in the same location. That's why it's a bit weird. And then the other person says, got the greenies on the brewery, whatever that means. And then Robyn then said, she has already left. Oh. And then the other person said, yes, ma'am, but the summit that a local business is. Don't know what happened. Would have been interesting to see the full conversation if it was ever shared, just to see the backstory and what happened next. But, you know, there is an acknowledgement to Jasmine Milan there. Now, back then, Laura Dutton, that person, had said, if I'm not mistaken, Avery, the birthday girl, blasted her own address at the party house over social media to get people to come to the party. So why is her address being given out a shock to anyone else now? Why did she choose to victimize herself? She was happy people showed up to her birthday. Oh no, Laura. Oh no, Laura. Oh no. Everybody get the face palms going. You know, the reason why this is a low IQ move by Laura Dutton is because the circumstances and the events and the locations are completely different, and the meanings are as well. Yes, in terms of a party, if anything went wrong or bad at the party, at the house, beside, you know, what happened to Noah Presgrove, which is out of this world in badness and whatever's happened there. You know, let's say you had a party and then you were complaining about so many people showed up, so many people were boisterous and loud and created a massive mess at the house and broke the odd bottle. It's out of hand. How could this happen? That's on you. That's your own fault because you made a public invite and you invited anyone and welcomed anyone. That is on you. If you complain about something which you welcomed, allowed or created in the first place, that's your fault. That's your problem. There's a fair chance that Avery didn't ask or have a party in preparation for Noah's death, right? There's not a direct link there. And depending on who was responsible, if anyone was, for Noah's death, like how Laura or some other people may push it, as in a friend, a party goer, how can that then link to Laura's argument of, well, you've made a public invite, meaning anyone can come on down, including more so strangers. So it's your own fault. So why are you victimizing yourself now when you did it? You know, you welcomed it back then. Well, even if Avery didn't do a public wide invite blasting her location, but she kept it private and low key, and if those same said friends that are supposedly labelled as murderers of Noah came around, would have been the same result for Noah Presgrove. So what's your point, Laura? It doesn't quite make sense. In regard to being in a public place under the circumstance of a baby shower, right, from what BBC said, there's more younger, vulnerable people at hand. Maybe, likely, Robyn didn't know that context, and if she did, she probably wouldn't have wanted to blast a location in the first place because it can harm other people, innocent people like younger ones. That's understandable. When you don't know the context, you might go full force like a bull in a china shop. But, you know, just breaking this down bit by bit. The thing is, at least from the conversation or the Facebook post, it wasn't so much Avery victimising herself there. It was people on behalf of her highlighting her as a victim. So it's not self-victimisation in that case. The people that have gone on about partygoers and the girls and Avery and so on being attacked, being harassed and all that isn't by Avery herself, it's by other people. If you wanted to make it out like other people labelling Avery as a victim to stuff, okay, but I've not seen directly, I don't think we've seen directly Avery saying, I'm a victim. In that sense, it's not self-victimisation in regard to that. And as said, there is technically a difference between a person with their own consent, as in making something public and known for a good cause or for the sake of having fun, just a party without what was to happen after, compared to at a brewery where Avery isn't the one openly revealing the location specifically, but someone on behalf of her is, but the consent isn't given in the same way, and the actual motive purpose behind it is vastly different. You're having a party, you make the location well known. It's reckless, it can be risky, but you're doing it because you want everyone to come on down and have a good time, supposedly. You're revealing your location for the sake of a party by your own consent. Comparing it to a separate individual revealing someone else's location as a means of putting them on a warning, as a means of intimidation and saying, we're watching you, is completely different, and it doesn't involve Avery victimising herself. So, Laura, that comment, what you said, is unusual. Very questionable. Anyway, move on. This is where it gets a bit dark and a bit strange. So I'll just glance through what we see here. Brooke, it was after all her murder posts, possibly February 2024, that's separate. Brenda back then, grief has many stages. Maybe in October 2023 she was going through the anger stage. This is my only opinion, I can't speak for Robyn. Right, so Brenda staying consistent to how she still is till this day, and with the understandings of what one could be going through. That post, what we saw earlier on Facebook, Brenda's comment, consistent with one of Brenda's old comments as well. Just proof in motion that Brenda's consistent. And what Brenda said back then is on par with what I suggested earlier on in today's video. So it's good that we're on the same wavelength. Brooke said, in regard to Carter Combs. So, you know, earlier on Facebook where Brooke said that, yeah, before Robyn blasted the location, or wanted to, of Avery, that Avery, the girls, had already been attacked. And Brooke said, yeah, that pretty much happened. And one of the other girls was attacked as well. I think that's what links to what Brooke said in the past. What you see in centre of the screen, hopefully it shows. Brooke said that she was the person to scream murder. She, as in Robyn Smith, for context, you know, because I was looking back at the chat. Brooke was saying Robyn was the first person to scream murder, and Robyn also attacked Carter Combs out in public. She was screaming murder for a hot minute. Okay? That sounds quite shocking, doesn't it? Just based on the words here. What else do we have? Crybaby, why would you accuse someone and make them your enemy and then expect them to give you their side of the story? Yeah. Tim Daniel at the time said, attacked Carter, as in Robyn Smith attacked Carter Combs? Really? Moving on. Just a bit of backstory in regards to the other thing, though, as in what we're looking at today. Just catch up there. Brooke said, agreed. Then she did this. Purposely harassing is not okay. Physically and mentally not okay. So it seems like that Carter Combs was attacked before Robyn went after Avery in trying to reveal and blast the location of where she was. So it was going from person to person. First starting off with Carter, then Avery. And then it just happens that those two are sisters. Also just happens that they were living together at the time. Also so happens that both Avery and Carter were hosts at the party. So maybe at the time, for a form of anger, a form of displacement, high emotional time, Robyn Smith, whether she was fed false information or not, took it out on the party host. Think that they should know better. They had a responsibility to look after Noah, which then later drove that whole wrongful death lawsuit because of the social hosting and so on. Possibly. Crybaby says, wow, so even a couple of weeks after Noah's death, Robyn was already talking about the deep pockets. Skippy, not seen Skippy for a long time. Brooke, how is that relationship between them now? Better, I hope. Brooke, no Skippy, not good at all. Just wait till you see what all she shows. Who? She shows? You mean Avery or Carter? If you're watching, Brooke, do you mean that the relationship between Robyn Smith and Avery, Robyn Smith and the girls, are not good at all? Are you saying that Avery and others may have receipts or screenshots which show how bad it really is or was? Is that what you mean? Okay. Brooke did say that in terms of Avery and Jasmine, that selfie which Robyn referred to at the brewery, Brooke down below said, this was at a baby shower, for your information, the picture of Avery and Jazz. And I believe that they were in a separate room when it was going on the baby shower. I mean, at a brewery of all places, maybe you don't have to look that deep into it. If it's a separate room away from alcohol, it shouldn't matter too much. Was there any particular reason for that particular place location being chosen for a baby shower, or was it just what was available at the time? I don't know personally. And then, yeah. So what we're moving on to now is a reference to back on this one where Brooke said about Carter Combs in public being attacked by Robyn Smith. For additional context, we'll add on here. So Brooke said, why would they go to the family when they were treated so horribly? Right? Oh, we got Mitch back then as well. He's been a long-term viewer. Shout out to Mitch. Crybaby also, why doesn't she family ask OHP questions about rumours that could be cleared up, such as, do the police have nose of a shoe and so on? Right, down at the bottom, the more important part, Brooke said Robyn Smith attacked Carter Combs at a football game in public, I believe. Brenda says, Brooke, verbally or physically attacked? And Brooke Carter says, Robyn Smith supposedly attacked Carter Combs physically and verbally. When Brenda left a comment on that same video or something, somewhere, Brenda said, what became of the assault on Carter Combs discussed in this video? Was the LE called? Were charges brought against Robyn? Did any bystanders step in? Did Stevie Howard confront Robyn? And down below, Robyn, as in the real Robyn Smith, Noah Presgrove's aunt, did respond and defend herself and said Carter Combs was never assaulted. Carter accosted me at my son's football game and didn't like what I had to say to her. No cops were called, no bystanders had to be step in, no charges filed, no actions taken other than her leaving my son's game. And that was it. So we got two different sides to the story, which is interesting. Last but not least, as I said, we were referring to the lawyers within the Noah Presgrove case and what to expect in time, so you're a bit more familiar and up to terms with the named individuals from the different sides. Credit to Joyce Bergow on the case discussion group, the lawyers in regard to Noah Presgrove family attorneys, the group All Rise PLLC, which consist of Austin Vance, I've heard of that one, Jeremy Otis, Ryan Sailors, I think I've heard of them, Hendrik Casey and Hutter PLLC, Andrew Casey, Godlove, Mayhall, Dutcher and Rabon, Austin Rabon, Evan Watson, and then as for the defendants, as for like the wrongful death lawsuit, the defendants' attorneys for Avery, Carter, Logan and Stevie Howard consist of Brewster and DeAngelis PLLC, Clark O. Brewster, Jacob F. Dobson, and as for the attorneys for Jack and Caleb Newton, it is Durbin Larimore and Balak, David B. Bonchin, Andrew M. Gunn, Davis Lauderdale. Attorneys for Johnny Trout Wilcoxon, also known as Bub Wilcoxon, is Best and Sharp, Sean H. McKee, Matthew A. Dunn, and then attorneys for Val Patrol, Ellis and Buchholz, Carl J. Buchholz. I think I've heard those names before earlier on. This is to help those who don't know whose lawyers are representing who. Yeah, so speaking of all rise, probably should all sit down now. Okay. So, had to put this on because I suddenly had a bad hair day after grabbing my head when reading Laura Dutton's comment, and that's all. But you saw the list of attorneys, people, defences, a lot of them, meaning the cost of it in total is going to be quite high, shows the prominent significance of the case, which adds a level of depth and meaning behind it all. Now, don't worry, the odd J person, don't worry, I'm not in disguise of an attorney or anything like that. I just had to, I was feeling a bit cold and had a bit of a bad hair day, that's all, no need to worry. I'm not going to stand up and say, objection, Robbie is actually secretly Amber Heard. We've got full-on proof by Lisa Jediman, which is you got to trust a person's words, and that's all. Objection, everyone. Tim Daniel has actually got other secret dresses and won't admit to it. So I'm here as the attorney to set the record straight. I've gone through all the proceedings and all of that, but the only proceeding which I haven't managed to go through is the training course on how to do an actual tie. I'm still learning with that, okay? So great job there. Beside all that, take this shit off for a second. I see proof and evidence. The hair was messed up. You know, proof in the moment. You got your receipts. You got your hard evidence. You can't take it out of context, can you? Bad hair day needs to be covered. Covered up, but not everything covered up, because that'd be deemed as corruption. The moment one day when I show myself on camera and my hair looks out of this world, someone's going to probably say Warlight Raff was paid off with a hair transfusion and a hair transplant. Really? Anyway, put that aside. I think we'll leave it there for now. But But in terms of the context, in regard to the serious situation between Carter Combs being attacked by Robyn and Robyn saying that didn't happen, different sides, one person supposedly telling the truth, another person lying. Which way round is it? It's difficult, isn't it? You'd hope to believe in the victim's family because they're the ones ultimately suffering at the end of the day. But then you'd hope to also believe not the attack was real. You wouldn't want that to be the case, but some people would want to believe in the party girl, the odd party friend, because they're supposedly a friend of Noah's, so you'd hope that they would be honouring Noah by telling the truth. But not everyone's all on the same wavelength or in line with what they say and talk about. So there is a division. There's some truth and then there's lies as well, and that's unfortunate. So just being careful with the language and wording there, because I know some people will try and go at you. When you're dealing with both sides all at once over a sensitive subject, yeah, it can backfire, it can go wrong, but hopefully the balance here was somewhat okay. I'm just interested as to why it all came around again. But nevertheless, as for me, it was worthwhile doing to just spread the awareness, the perspectives, the struggles, what's going on, what has gone on, and once again, to highlight in the odd person's mind, like Justin Roy, that likes to say there's only one victim. Well, if you're going to say about how things were twisted with you, your daughter, you could say that you're a victim yourself to things being taken out of context. But I don't know why, maybe because you don't want to accept being a victim. Not everybody likes to accept the victim label. Okay? But you could say Robyn Smith maybe in some ways somehow is a victim to being attacked online. You could say Avery, Carter are victims to being harassed and acts of vigilantism aimed towards them. That Caden Pressey at some points was a victim and led to therapy sessions or something. Can you see the pattern? There's more than one victim. There's a lot of collateral damage. But the odd person like Justin won't admit or acknowledge that, regardless of the sides. And I don't get it. It's very unusual, that. It's very strange. Anyway, be sure to hit the like button, share the video to spread that awareness on the current situation. If you want to share the video, that'd be appreciated. If support the channel down below, link and full playlist on the case, top right corner up there. We'll leave it there for now. We'll see what happens next. My name's Wallach Raff. Thanks for watching. Goodbye. Good night for now.